All right, welcome. We are so excited to hear what it is that you are about to say. This should be Unit 4. My name is Ellen Zwarnstein, and I have the privilege of coordinating We the People in the greatest state of Michigan. So, woohoo! We are here, your judges are here. They will introduce themselves and they will ask you to introduce yourselves, followed by the reading of the question. And I will, as you always, will put some time cards up here when it is time. Otherwise, the judges will start us off and kick it off.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. My name is Ann Zinkin. I am your Chief Justice for this session. I am a career law clerk at the New Hampshire Supreme Court. I've been here for about 21 years. Prior to that, I was a litigator in San Francisco. I've been doing We the People on the state level for somewhere between 5 and 10 years. And I'm married to a guy from Ann Arbor. And if pressed, I will sing the fight song from University of Michigan.
I'm Hank Chambers. I'm a law professor down at the University of Richmond. I've been at this for a couple of decades, so before any of you all were born. It's good to see you all and look forward to the conversation.
You'd unmute there. Good afternoon. I'm Barry Anderson. I'm an associate justice on the Minnesota Supreme Court. Been doing this for a number of years. Long ago and far away, I was an assistant coach on a team that was at this competition. And so I have some knowledge of the stress and challenge that you're all experiencing. And I just want to assure you we're going to enjoy this conversation. It's going to be a great experience for all of us. So we're looking forward to it. And Judge, it's yours.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about each of you.
Thank you for allowing us to testify before you today. We're a unit composed of all juniors from East Grand Rapids High School. My name is Ellie Sheridan.
I'm Reese Brown.
And I'm Megan Balama. We are coached by the wonderful Adam Horos and Ben Lankles, and we are Unit 4.
Awesome. So we're doing question 1 from Unit 4. And I'll read the question, and after I read the question, you're free to start your presentation. It would be inconsistent with the constitutional separation of the executive and legislative powers to let the prerogative, pardon power, be exercised by the latter. What were the framers' reasons for giving the president the pardon power, and do you agree or disagree with them? According to the framer, James Wilson, if the president abuses the pardon power, he can be impeached and prosecuted. Do you agree with Wilson? Why or why not? In your opinion, what constitutes high crimes and misdemeanors? Please begin.
Many tenets of English jurisprudence were adopted by the states during the framing of our Constitution, one being the act of pardoning, otherwise known as the prerogative of mercy. It was originally established for kings to show mercy to subjects, but had evolved into a method for leaders to allow for flexibility in the written law when a higher principle of justice was in contradiction with what was enforced. Hamilton confirms this as the basis for including the pardon power in Federalist 74, claiming good policy and humanity require it. Hamilton further argued that this power should be left to the executive. As such, we agree with the framers' rationale in assigning unilateral and unlimited power to the executive.
In Federalist 74, Hamilton supported the executive's sole possession of the pardon power, postulating that one man appears to be a more eligible dispenser of the mercy than a body of men. As such, Hamilton suggested the necessary use of the pardon power in a manner consistent with mercy would be better exercised by the executive rather than the legislature. We agree with the aforementioned due to the mob mentality prominent among Congress, along with the pressure of party loyalty. Congress people are less likely to voice their true opinions over pardon than an individual person who considers the judicial prejudice and excessive punishment, rather than the deliberation of a body of men.
Hamilton also argues that by bestowing the pardon power to a unitary entity, pardons can be carried out swiftly and effectively. This argument is proven true by the many instances where a swift pardon was of national importance, such as the pardoning of Confederate soldiers after the Civil War to reunite the country and restore tranquility. Additionally, we agree with the Federalist Paper 74's reasoning that granting this power to a sole individual ensures transparency and efficiency. In the instance of having to check the pardon power, which has never been and most likely never will be applied, the check can be directed to the sole individual and justice can be carried out without any obscurity.
We agree with James Wilson's assertion that an abuse of the pardon power could constitute grounds for impeachment. It is possible for the executive to exploit pardons in a manner that is conducive of personal gain, rather than the benefit of the country, which Federalist 65 asserts is a high crime and misdemeanor. As such, following the sentiment of the framers using impeachment as a check on tyranny, abuse of the pardon power could constitute impeachment.
Though we believe an abuse of the pardon power can lead to impeachment, the reality is there have only been 4 cases of impeachment throughout US history, and none have resulted in a removal from office. Even when a president uses the pardon power to advance himself personally, politically, or financially, impeachment does not serve as a realistic check for pardons, although public opinion of the president does. For example, if a pardon is very unpopular and noticed by the people, the president's approval rating and effectiveness can be hurt, which is most evident in Ford's pardon of Nixon. However, presidents issue the large majority of their pardons in the last few weeks of their term, circumventing the people's opposition as they are already leaving office.
High crimes and misdemeanors generally represent significant actions taken by officials that go against the state, resulting in profound implications to the functioning of the country's democratic process. President Gerald R. Ford notably stated that an impeachable offense is whatever a majority of the House of Representatives considers it to be at a given moment in history. Based on Ford's definition, an impeachable offense does not necessarily need to be a violation of the law, nor does a violation of the law necessarily constitute impeachment grounds. For example, while President Clinton lied under oath and obstructed justice, the Senate still did not see it as grounds for removal.
Further, Hamilton theorized a clear definition by stating in Federalist 65, the subjects of its jurisdiction are those offenses which abuse or violate some public trust. Former President Trump's actions, resulting in 2 impeachments, exemplifies the betrayal of public trust and the effect that it had on his presidency. Ultimately, it is we the people who determine who is elected into office, and it is we the people who determine who is removed. Thank you. We are now ready for your questions.
Thank you very much. So it sounds like you agree that the impeachment power should be vested in one person and that it should be unlimited, and that the pardon power, and that impeachment is not an effective check on the pardon power. Should there be any limits on the pardon power? What happens when the president abuses it?
I believe there should be a check on the pardon power. As seen throughout history, the president has the pardon power has been further used for political gain, as such appealing to public opinion. One example of this would be President Trump pardoning rappers and other people of the African-American community to appeal to voters.
I also agree that there should be a limit on who the president can pardon, especially if there's a relationship between that person and the president. One example of this would be when President Bill Clinton pardoned his half-brother. I believe that this pardon was much more for personal gain and the relationship that he had with his half-brother.
So I think you all said in your opening that Hamilton suggested the unilateral and unlimited power to pardon. If there's an unlimited power to pardon, how do you limit the power to pardon?
Well, there is no limit on the power to pardon currently. Like the president can pardon whoever he wants, and this is kind of an abusive power, but there is no check on it technically, as seen in Article 2, Section 2. It just says that the pardon can pardon whoever he wants.
I definitely think that the public plays a role in being a check on the president during his amount of pardons that he does, especially at the end of term. The public is able to recognize that they are pardoning countless people and possibly can wonder if they're doing these correctly. President Bill Clinton did 140 pardons on his last day in office, which is a very high amount.
Okay, so the pardons themselves will still be effective, but the president may still abuse the power in how the president pardons folks. Okay, and elections are not a check on that either?
Well, determined on whether he's in his first or second term, midterm elections can be a check on the president, as if the public thinks that the pardons were unjustified, they can vote for congressmen from the opposite party. But as we've seen through previous presidents, a lot of their pardons are in their last week or last month of office. So there isn't much opposition in place when they conduct those pardons. So I believe that there should be a further check on the pardon power, such as implementing Congress into the decision of whether that pardon should be carried through.
Okay, last piece. You know I'm going to ask you because you're from Grand Rapids. Should Ford have pardoned Nixon?
I believe that the pardon that President Ford did of President Nixon or Richard Nixon was essential for allowing our country to go past this unpopular and like Hamilton stated, to restore tranquility in the country, which I think with the pardon, it helps the country move forward.
I agree with my colleague. And in addition, with the Watergate scandal, that brought about a lot of like a disruption with the public trust in the presidency. And I think that it was necessary for Ford to pardon Nixon because he was going to be the president and he wanted the public to trust him. So he wanted the public to move on from that and to place their trust back in the executive.
I also. Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead, go ahead.
I also agree with my colleagues. I believe that the Ford pardoning of Nixon was justified, as Ford himself believed that that when Nixon accepted the pardon, that he was admitting guilt to the Watergate scandal and to the conspiracy he was in. So Ford believed that while Nixon was admitting guilt, he was also furthering the country away from this scandal.
So let me ask you a little bit about some of the language in the Constitution. And I note that in the impeachment process, which the framers have set out, there's almost no role for the judiciary to play. Regardless of whether the impeachment's of the president or somebody else, the judiciary is just not involved, with the exception of the Chief Justice presiding in the case of the impeachment of the president. Why do you suppose they cut the judiciary out altogether?
Well, the judicial branch and the justices of the Supreme Court, they're supposed to remain nonpartisan. And I think that with the nature of pardons, they typically are very partisan and they're not supposed to hold an opinion. So therefore, they should not be involved in it.
I think that impeachment could technically be a political question, which the Supreme Court is not able to answer. This refers to the idea of the political question, that an idea is so political that the court should not intervene.
So is that a suggestion that the judiciary may not have any role to review whether someone's been impeached?
I think that the judiciary should, if necessary, be able to review it, but no, not decide if the president should be impeached or not.
I agree with my colleague. I think that with the judicial branch getting involved in impeachment cases, that it kind of enters into the deep weeds because it can be very partisan and they're not supposed to talk about things like that.
Would the framers think of impeachment as being a partisan issue?
I don't think that the framers realized how partisan the impeachment would be, as they thought it would be a check on the president, but now as it is used today, rarely being used today, it is in a very partisan nature. And so no, I do not believe that they thought it would be this partisan.
Do you think the framers see the impeachment process, would the framers see the impeachment process today as operating the way they intended? If so, yes. If not, why not?
I do not believe that the framers would see the impeachment process being implemented in the way that they intended, because president hasn't actually been fully impeached. The closest that it's come has actually been former President Trump. And so I think that they intended for it to be a much more common process, and it hasn't been.
I believe the framers did not intend for it to be this partisan, as although there were already factions in place during the creation of the Constitution, and although like such as in the Senate, where it's a cooling house that is meant to create legislation more slowly using the gridlock system. However, when it comes to impeachment, the framers did not intend for it to be this partisan, as when during the American Revolution, they were scared of a tyrannical leader overtaking the government. And so I believe that they intended for the impeachment process to be run more smoothly.
We see that they were in nature in the impeachment of President Bill Clinton, where no Democrats voted for him to be impeached.
Should we make it easier to impeach a president?
I don't think by any means that an impeachment should be a normal thing, but I definitely think that if necessary, it should be used. And right now it is too hard to impeach a president.
I agree with my colleague. I think that if we made changes to Congress so that you know, like the House of Representatives is very Democrat leaning, and then the Senate is very Republican leaning. So it makes it very hard for impeachment to even pass in the first place. So if there were changes made to that, then that could make things potentially better.
Thank you very much. That was wonderful. I want to give just a little bit of feedback. You guys were fabulous. I very much appreciated how directly you answered the question posed and how complete your answers were to the questions that we asked you. I thought you did a nice job of referring to the Federalist Papers while you're still talking about modern examples. I thought that was wonderful. I thought whoever brought up that reviewing the propriety of an impeachment or whether somebody should be impeached could be a political question was a great answer. And I really appreciated the conversation. So thank you very much.
So I want to say, I want to echo what my colleague said. I want to first say that in response to the question my colleague asked about the Ford Nixon pardon, I'm the oldest guy in the room here, and I was a volunteer and door knocker for Gerald Ford in 1976. So you answered that question correctly. That little bit of humor aside, although I was in fact a volunteer for Gerald Ford, I do want to thank you for your presentation. It was very, very strong, very good. And the point that one of you made about the midterm elections being a check on the results here, or a check on the president, I think that's correct. I'm not sure the founders would have seen that coming. You know, maybe they would have in the sense of factions and so forth. But certainly the two-term limit on the presidency makes that last term more immune to impeachment as a tool, as a threatened tool. The question, the answer, the comment about impeachment as a political question, and that's the reason the courts aren't involved. I think that's right. I think that's it's not a political question doctrine that comes along many years later. But the Supreme Court as getting involved in a political question, small q, I think that's right. I think the founders realized that would be a mistake, and is part of the reason why they're not involved. So yeah, great presentation. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was fun conversation. I thought the opening was good. It struck a tone in terms of being a Hamiltonian focused opening, which is a little rough. That is, if Hamilton was a bit of a monarchist, and if you're going to have a mercy power that's monarchical, it's going to be hard to limit it, and it's going to be hard to say that anything is an abuse of power when the power is monarchical. But you guys went there, and you were willing to defend it. You certainly told us that even though the framers had a structure, the structure is just not working, and that was a good conversation. And of course, it's always good to know that you guys know about your hometown hero, Gerald Ford. So as a consequence, it was a good conversation, and I appreciate it, and good luck to you all moving forward.
Right.
Thank
Congratulations.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.